Are you struggling to edit your winter photos? It doesn't have to be a challenge. In this video, I'll share with you a straightforward 3-step editing technique that I use to get crisp, rich, and detailed winter photos. Well, I used to struggle with this same problem until I discovered a game-changing method that transformed my winter editing process. Today, I'll edit some winter shots and compare them to shots taken at other times in the year. By examining these edits, we'll see what types of challenges winter photography presents and how to get over them effectively. Okay, so I've loaded up 5 raw files I took in winter, 5 raw files that I took in summer. The first thing that I see in all of these winter raw files is just how white the snow is and just how dark everything else is. In this photo specifically, I've lost almost all detail in the trees here. And in this one over here, the camera definitely got the white balance completely wrong on this one. In my summer raw files, there's definitely very little contrast, but I can see all the details with the naked eye. If I were to edit these photos, I think I would be adding quite a lot of contrast to each of them to really make all of these colors and elements pop. All of this is reflected in the histograms of these raw files. You can see in the winter files, you see 2 major spikes of data with really nothing going on in the middle. I'm assuming this one on the right is all of the snow and the one on the left is everything else. But in the summer photos, all of the data is compressed in the middle of the histogram. You can see this one and this one specifically, lots of deep, rich colors that's just filling up this histogram completely. Okay, so let's talk about this technique. The first step is to flatten your image. And what I mean by that is to remove as much contrast from your image as you possibly can to reveal all that you can see in the image. I'll remove a lot of this contrast using the contrast slider, but I'll also take down the highlights, take up the shadows, take down the whites, and take up the blacks. What I have in this photo right now is something that's very flat, but I can see all the details in my eye when I'm editing it. And some additional things that really weren't visible in the image before have started to show up. This tree is a little more visible here, and I can see a few more of the colors in the grass that's in front of the trees. Step 2 is to add back contrast, but in a different way. I'm going to be using the texture slider, which adds micro contrast. What that does is that it adds contrast between the individual details of light and dark in all of your subjects. You can kind of think of it like I removed the contrast globally and added the contrast back locally. The second thing is that I'll be upping the clarity slider. What this does is it raises the midtones in your image. And what both of these together will end up with is that your histogram will look a little bit more like it did in the summer. It's not exactly the same, but you get a lot of detail and it's ready to be processed by adding the contrast back. The last step of this process is to kind of let this marinate a little bit in your mind. Step away for a few minutes, and when you come back, consider that this is now the new base of what this photo is going to be. And you're going to be able to use the same style that you do any other time in the year to get this photo looking great. I've gone and synced the edit that I did on this first photo onto the others, and I just want to review what the histograms look like so that you can see the difference. Okay, so I edited all 5 of my winter photos, and I used the exact same technique for all flattening, adding micro contrast, taking a step back for just a second, and then editing as I would normally. I took an additional step in comparison. Hopefully you can follow me on this. I went and edited another summer photo and, gave it a pretty standard edit that I would normally do. I then took the edit that I had and applied all of the changes to each of these winter photos to sort of give this concept of, if I had used my summer editing technique or without this pre-processing step, what would I have likely ended up with? So I'll show off the photos that I did using this editing technique, and then I'll show the comparison to my kind of Frankenstein summer edit. So this is the winter photo for this. And if I go over to the summer, what you can see is that there's not a lot of detail in these trees, and the snow is just far too bright. This photo, I don't think I got a very pleasing edit out of in either direction, but definitely this one is a little bit nicer than the summer edit, which just has the whites are far too bright and the colors are just a little bit weird. There's some greens and all sorts of things in here that don't really look very natural. This one I actually ended up editing twice because I just love this photo so much. But again, here is the winter edits, and you can really see the emerald of Emerald Lake really shining through, the sort of blue in this sky of this winter scene really coming through. The summer edit just looks very flat. There's just no detail at all in this big piece of snow here. Let me show that off in comparison. You can see all this detail. And the sky is blown out. I tried to adjust the exposure a little bit of this one and a couple of the other ones to sort of make them a little bit more, make some sense. But again, the darks are just too dark, and I've just lost a lot of the color in this scenery. It still looks beautiful, but it doesn't really look a lot like this one, which when you look at it for long enough, the green is just popping so much. It's really quite nice. This photo, I think I've edited this photo 20 times to try to get it exactly what I needed to, so doing it today was a little easier. But if I compare this to the summer edit of this, you'll see the blacks are just black. There's no defined detail in the snow whatsoever, and you completely lose all the color of this, this river. Bringing it back over to the summer photo, one of the things that I like about this is just how blue it was, and it really was this blue when I was there on scene. This photo, I think I've got, a completely out of focus background, part of a focus stack that I just didn't focus stack for this video. But if you look at the summer edit of this, it's just very dark, very low contrast, and looks a little bit like it was taken at, kind of after sunset or something like that. It's just a little too weird. But if I take up the exposure of this to make it look a little bit more, you lose all the detail in the sky. And even if I do a quick edit on the sky to kind of take down some of the exposure, it still never ends up looking just right, because the edits on the winter photo just bring out so much more of this color after looking at the photo and really getting a good idea of what detail that I had, what colors that I had in this photo. It made it much easier for me to pull those out in the final edit. Okay, so let's review what I did to each of these. All of these photos, what I really did was removed all of the contrast from the photo first. And then I added back micro contrast in the form of the texture slider and the clarity slider to bring the mids up a little bit more and add micro contrast to the details of the photo. Once this step is done, you go grab a drink of water, you go do something for 5 minutes, come back and take a look at this photo so that you're no longer judging it based on what the raw file used to look like. Let me give you just 3 additional tips that you can apply to make this process very successful for you. The first is, with any of my edits, I usually start very heavy-handed and end very delicately. Get the broad strokes done before working on the details. The second is, do not trust your camera's auto white balance. Perfectly fine if you want to shoot with an auto white balance, but make sure that you set it differently after the fact. I have never used a camera that got winter white balance just right, and I don't expect it's going to happen in the future. The last thing is, don't be afraid of the extremes. If you're finding yourself pulling a slider all the way to positive 100, negative 100, or somewhere in there, maybe you're doing the right thing. Maybe that's what's required to get this photo looking the way that you want it to be. Well, I hope this winter editing technique works for you. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments and I'll respond to them. Thanks for watching. As always, bye for now.